we went through Tennyson's In Memoriam last week, and in that poem at length, we saw the poet overtly expressing personal doubts as well as some of the doubts of his age. The doubts of the age being about religion, spurred on by recent scientific um, discoveries. Now, in Byron, we don't see that overt enunciation of crisis, doubt. Browning expresses doubt through the characters in his dramatic monologues. And I mentioned in another lecture, one way that Browning explores the ambiguity of the human psyche, one way that he explores the possibility that we can never know exactly where our motivations come from, is through embedding what I'm calling blind spots in the more famous dramatic monologues, like the ones you read are reading now, Fra Lippi, Andrea del Sarto, Porphyria's Lover, and My Last Duchess. In each of these poems, each character is trying to justify a particular act. And in justifying that particular act, they're trying to remove themselves from responsibility for that act. And the question we ask is, are they aware that they're doing this? Are they aware that they're basically trying to say it's not my fault? Are they aware of that? And if they're not, that means we have two levels of meaning: a kind of conscious utterance of the character, but then a kind of unconscious that this character is not aware of. And these two meanings give the poem a tension. But that's pretty simple. It's much more complicated than that. So let's think about irony. We know from our studies of Jane Austen in particular that irony, basic form, is a situation where one meaning is expressed and the opposite is expressed at the same time. And we talked about the different kinds of irony: verbal irony, dramatic irony, situational irony. Well, a problem with reading a Browning monologue, a dramatic monologue, is what kind of irony are we dealing with? So let's think about My Last Duchess. Um, the Duke is talking to an envoy from a family, the family of a woman he's preparing to marry, and the dowry is being negotiated. So what does the Duke do? He takes this envoy to show this painting of the Last Duchess, talks about this red spot on her face, which is a sign of pleasure, and how, yes, it's beautiful, but also it's a mark of how she was unable to single out the Duke for her sole pleasure, but rather took pleasure in other things as well. Maybe innocent pleasure, it seems to be the case. Maybe, but certainly the pleasure that threatened the Duke. So he's pointing out this quality of the Last Duchess as he's articulating. We don't know if we can really believe him or not, and ultimately suggests, well, she, I could have told her that she shouldn't have done these things. I should have told her that she shouldn't look at other men or even enjoy cherry blossoms. I could have told her those things. I could have said, oh, that disgusts me, or I don't like that. But he says, I didn't want to stoop to do that. I'm not going to stoop down just to deal with these kind of trifles with her. She either knows it or she doesn't. Well, she doesn't, so I gave commands, suggesting I gave commands that she be killed. So clearly he's trying to send a message to the envoy saying, I don't want my prospective wife to be this way. She better focus her attention only on me. And if she doesn't, something really bad will happen. But after he does that, he says, okay, let's look at the painting of the Duchess one more time. It looks as if she were alive. So, he's clearly kind of fixated on the painting and clearly kind of fixated on the life of the Last Duchess, suggesting that he might feel some remorse. And then, of course, the last part of the poem shows him accompanying the envoy out of the room, which is a kind of condescension. He's stepping down to do something he normally wouldn't do. He says no, suggesting the envoy's getting ready to leave on his own. The Duke says, no, don't go. I'll walk down with you, which is odd for a man of such pride who does not stoop. Here he's stooping. And then, of course, he shows another painting of a sea painting, a figure controlling figures of the sea, which could be an example of his trying to control Um, let's just look at that image. It's important. I want to get it out. I want to get it out there. Let's see here. Bear with. Yeah. So he says, "Nay, we'll go together down." Again, we can see the scene where the envoy is getting ready to go. No, I'll go down with you. He's condescending. He's stooping in a way, and he says he would not stoop. Uh, Notice Neptune, the god of the sea, though taming a seahorse thought a rarity, which Klaus of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me. So this last little bit does what? It shows yet again he's a man of wealth. He's a man of power. This is a very rare paint. This is a very rare figure in bronze, and look how beautiful it is. So that's going on, but also we see a god, controlling, taming a seahorse. Does the Duke know that he himself is trying to tame the women in his life? Is that yet another message to the envoy? So where are we? It seems to me like we can look at least three kinds of irony at play in this poem, and our question is, which kind of irony is it, or is it all three at the same time? Verbal irony. Verbal irony occurs when a speaker is saying one thing but also saying the opposite at the same time and knows that. Is the Duke aware of the fact that he is, through his language, telling the envoy, this new wife better fall in line or she might meet the same fate as the last Duchess? Is he aware that he's doing that, or is he so caught up in his pride that he reveals something that really he may not have wanted to reveal? See, we don't know. We don't know the level of consciousness. So is it verbal irony or is it not? Well, if it's not verbal irony, is it dramatic irony? Dramatic irony, of course, occurs when a character in a work of literature doesn't know something that the audience knows. Now, when I'm referring to the audience here, I'm not referring to the envoy. I'm referring to we as readers. Do we know that the Duke is revealing his past crime, and does he not know that? Does he not know that? Is he not aware of what he's revealing? So again, it's difficult to tell what his level of awareness is. If he's not aware, then, and we as readers are aware, attuned to his language, that would be dramatic irony. It's verbal irony if he is aware. But there's a third kind of irony that could be at play here, situational irony, which generally is defined as the opposite of what is expected. So for the Duke to say, I will not stoop, I will not stoop, I did not stoop, I did not stoop, well, we don't expect him to stoop, but he does. And offering to exit with the envoy, clearly a social inferior. So that's just one particular situational irony. Another is that on two occasions he says, oh, look at the painting of the Duchess. It's as if she were alive. Well, of course, she's dead. And it seems that he has knocked her off, and he's maybe aware of that. So for him to focus on her life when she's dead, again, opposite what's expected. So there's three kinds of irony that are at play in the piece. So as you go through these dramatic monologues of Browning, pay attention to that. It's one way to think about I guess Browning's, again, psychological subtlety, that he's really in a pre-Freudian way. I mean, this is proto-Freudian in a lot of ways. He's interested in the tension between what we might call unconscious motives and conscious motives, and how difficult it is to tell the difference between the two, or how difficult it is to tell which is which. So we as readers are almost like psychoanalysis, trying to figure out where these feelings are coming from, where these words are coming from. That's part of the challenge of reading a Browning dramatic monologue, but also part of the joy, because it really is akin to looking at an actual person in a very interesting, heightened situation and trying to understand what is at play in the heart and the mind.